Hey everyone, welcome back to AniMonolith. In today's episode of our That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Light novel summary series, we're leaving the tense political drama of the Eastern Empire behind and heading straight back to Tempest. This time, the story follows the trio of Shinji, Mark, and Shin, who have just arrived in Rimuru City under orders from Yuki to scout out the mysterious dungeon. But the moment they step into the capital, they're completely overwhelmed. Instead of the barren land and ominous gate they were expecting, they're greeted by a bustling, high-tech city. It's so clean, so lively, and so modern that for a moment they wonder if Kigali warped them to the wrong place. Thanks to their Freedom Association IDs, the group enters the city without issue. From there, they rent a room at an inn and begin their investigation, which in reality starts off as sightseeing. Tempest stuns them with its development. There's delicious food from their original world, a wide range of entertainment, clean infrastructure, and equality between races and classes. For these three otherworlders, Tempest feels more like home than the Empire ever did. But they know the truth. A war is coming. The Empire won't overlook Tempest's growth for long, so despite being tempted to stay, they stick to the plan and begin exploring the dungeon. Fast forward 1 week, and the trio has already cleared floor 50. At first, they were on high alert, but as they progressed, they realized the dungeon felt more like a video game than a death trap. With Shinji and Mark's gaming knowledge and Shin's trap detection skills, they advanced quickly, collecting loot, selling rare items, and racking up serious cash. At this point, only Masayuki's party had gone further, to floor 60, making Shinji's team the MVPs of the month. And the surprises kept coming. Not only were they allowed to keep everything they found, even high-tier weapons and treasure, but they were also rewarded by the dungeon staff. In any other country, rare items like that would be confiscated or taxed, but not in Tempest. This kind of freedom was unheard of. One particular find catches their eye, a unique grade weapon with a mysterious hole in it. Even appraisal magic can't identify its full function. The trio suspects there's a hidden secret tied to these hole weapons, and decides to hold on to them until Gadra arrives. By now, they're starting to wonder just how powerful Tempest really is. If the country can casually hand out high-grade weapons like these, what else is it hiding? And if a war does break out, could even the mighty Empire be in trouble? Even so, there's a shadow hanging over their thoughts. They know that if they defect, they'll be branded traitors. No country will shelter them. The Empire's punishment is death. Swift and brutal. For now, their duty comes first. Still, one thing is clear. Tempest is not the kind of place they expected. It's a land of comfort, fairness, and progress. And for Shinji, Mark, and Shin, who've only known hardship and war, that's enough to make them dream, even if just for a moment. A few days had passed since the trio began their journey through the labyrinth. After a string of intense battles and rapid progress, Shinji, Mark, and Shin were now standing at the entrance to floor 60. They knew what this meant. A powerful boss fight was just ahead, stronger than anything they had faced so far, and definitely not something they could take lightly. The floors leading up to this point had already shown a steep difficulty curve. From poisonous swamps to corrosive terrain, each step had pushed them harder. It had taken them a full 3 days just to get from floor 50 to 59, a clear sign that the dungeon wasn't playing around anymore. They took a moment to collect themselves. Weapons were checked, energy restored, minds sharpened. Then came the final nods. Quiet, confident, ready. With that, the three placed their hands on the heavy door and pushed it open. Ever wonder where Rimuru was while people were raking in cash from his dungeon? Yep, right in the middle of it all. Let's rewind a few days. At that time, Rimuru was fully focused on war preparations. Knowing that tracking enemy movement was crucial, he had come up with a new plan. A long-range magical surveillance system. And of course, Rimuru was just the guy with the idea. The heavy lifting, that was all Raphael's job. Sure, Rimuru could have used a traditional spy network, placing agents in key locations, but that strategy had major flaws. Too many people needed, and if even one got killed, the info chain would be cut. So, Rimuru turned to magic and tech. Using a combo of physical magic, spirit magic, and spatial domination, he and Raphael started creating magical surveillance eyes. Think floating water droplets acting as remote cameras or high-altitude magical lenses transmitting real-time images back to headquarters. With this, Rimuru hoped to monitor every inch of the battlefield and shut down the Empire's sneaky tactics through the Jura forest. Rimuru also asked Raphael to follow his designs to be beautiful and user-friendly. Even as he told himself that Raphael doing the work still counted as him working, he decided he deserved a tea break, only to be interrupted mid-sip. Rimuru-sama, urgent report! It was Beretta, and yes, it was about the dungeon. You see, Rimuru had told Beretta to report immediately if anyone broke past floor 50. And that day had come. Someone had done it. Aside from Masayuki's crew, it had been a long time since anyone passed that milestone. What shocked Rimuru even more wasn't just that someone beat the boss. It was that it took them only 7 days. That wasn't normal. According to Beretta, the party had 3 members, all wielding unique skills. This was their first time in the dungeon, yet they blew through the lower floors and even claimed one of the legendary Minos gear sets Rimuru had hidden as a one-time reward on floor 50. These items were no joke, crafted by Kurobe's top disciples and inspired by the mythical Minotaur. Naturally, Rimuru was suspicious. He figured these 3 weren't ordinary adventurers. They might be spies from the Empire who had taken the bait. Worried about what this meant, Rimuru immediately dropped everything, even testing his new surveillance magic, and headed straight for the dungeon's control room. Ramirez and Veldora were already there when Rimuru arrived. These two never seemed to get tired. Rimuru called it child energy. As long as they were having fun, they could go on forever. Ramirez greeted him in her usual chaotic fashion. "Ah, Commander, you're here. Situation's unchanged," even though Rimuru hadn't been told anything yet. Turning his eyes to the giant screen, Rimuru spotted 3 young men tearing through the dungeon floors at ridiculous speed. Judging by their strange outfits, he guessed they were otherworlders. They had already cleared floor 50 and were pushing their way toward floor 60. At that moment, the trio was facing off against 6 death wolves, undead monsters immune to normal physical attacks. Only holy or magic weapons could hurt them. These wolves weren't just tough, they required actual strategy to beat. But the brown-haired guy in the tank top made short work of them using Minos' Bardiche, a magical axe obtained from floor 50. Despite being a recent pickup, he wielded it like a pro. Seeing this, Rimuru understood why these 3 were progressing so fast. They weren't just strong, they were experienced. Next, Rimuru noticed the Chinese-looking guy in the black robe. He seemed to be in charge of trap detection, an extremely valuable skill in the dungeon. The third member, wearing a white lab coat over chainmail, hadn't done much, except in their fight with Gozer. Curious, Rimuru asked Raphael to pull up the footage, and sure enough, in that battle, the lab coat guy injected his 2 teammates with something using a syringe. Moments later, Gozer's movements slowed dramatically, and he was defeated. Raphael confirmed it. The injection was a neurotoxin, and the room had also been filled with poison gas. The guy didn't just bring poison, he adapted it for the situation. A high-level skill, no doubt. Even more interesting, it was this guy in the lab coat who dealt the final blow to Gozer with a precise slash to the jugular. Clearly, he was the brains of the team. Rimuru now saw the pattern. This was a perfectly coordinated party, strong offense, sharp support, and a clear leader. Xena soon arrived with the team's registration documents. Their listed names and roles: Shinji, 23, Magician; Mark, 26, Warrior; and Shin, 17, Hunter. They claimed to be from a small country in the Empire and said they came to challenge the dungeon because of rumors. Yeah, right. Raphael's analysis confirmed that all 3 had unique skills. Their roles also lined up with elite-level professions: magic, martial arts, and advanced hunting skills. These weren't random travelers. Rimuru immediately voiced his suspicion. These 3 might be spies. Diablo, who appeared out of nowhere, as usual, agreed, although he found it odd they were so honest on paper. Rimuru was startled. When had Diablo even entered the room? Still, Diablo had a point. No trained spy would submit information this accurate, unless it was meant to throw them off. Rimuru eyed the name Shinji and thought, no way that's real. Probably just Shinji. At that point, Veldora claimed Rimuru was being too cautious, while Ramirez was more concerned with how to deal with the trio rather than who they were. Looking at the 2 carefree guardians, Rimuru couldn't help but feel a bit jealous. But either way, one thing was clear. Before jumping to conclusions, he needed to keep watching and gather more intel. For the next 3 days, Rimuru, Ramirez, and Veldora had way too much fun watching Shinji's group tear through the dungeon floors. Their progress was so impressive that everyone got totally sucked into the action. So much so, they almost forgot the Empire was about to invade Tempest. Rimuru kept telling himself this wasn't just entertainment, that he was watching to analyze enemy potential. But let's be real, their battles were just too fun to look away from. Then Veldora, out of nowhere, brought up something Rimuru had said 3 days ago. "What did you mean when you said they took the bait?" Yep, our favorite dragon was rewinding the plot. Rimuru didn't even want to bother explaining, knowing full well Veldora's attention span was trash. But seeing how patient he was being, Rimuru gave in. The truth was, Rimuru had been running drills to evacuate citizens into the dungeon in case of war. Thanks to Ramirez's ability Labyrinth Creation, he could swap the surface city with a safe floor underground. It required a ton of magicules, and that's where Veldora came in. He was the muscle for the operation. The drills had gone well, too well in fact. They'd attracted the attention of spies. So yeah, that was the bait. Hearing how essential they were, both Ramirez and Veldora beamed with pride. Veldora puffed his chest and shamelessly asked for cake as a reward. Rimuru refused, of course, but Diablo, ever the loyal shadow, offered his slice. Rimuru appreciated it. Diablo really did know how to shine at the perfect moment. With that settled, they turned back to the screen, just in time to see Shinji's group preparing to face the boss of Floor 60. Their pace was insane. Despite suspecting they were spies, Rimuru wanted to see just how far they could go. Worst case, he'd arrest them later and confiscate everything they'd earned. Not a bad plan, right? Veldora praised Rimuru's cleverness, and even Ramirez chimed in with a heartfelt compliment, though to Rimuru it felt more like they were roasting him. Still, he appreciated the love. As Raphael continued to analyze the group, things got interesting. Shinji's unique skill. It let him control viruses. He could spread them through the air and attack enemies from the inside out. Deadly, subtle, and nearly impossible to defend against. It also worked for healing, even better than nanotech medical equipment. Next is Mark. The dude could hurl literally anything he could lift with ridiculous speed and power. With some gravity magic added in, Rimuru figured Mark could take out an entire army solo. Basically, he was a one-man catapult of destruction. And then there was Jin, whose unique skill came loaded with danger detection, monster tracking, presence sensing, and trap detection. Rimuru thought of him as the dungeon's worst enemy. He basically neutralized every floor gimmick with ease. Back on screen, the trio entered floor 60 to face the immortal king, Adelman. Xena voiced concern that Adelman, being undead, was at a huge disadvantage against Minos' Bardiche, the holy weapon Mark had picked up. Despite recent power-ups, Rimuru had his doubts about Adelman's odds. The floor had been designed more around traps than raw strength, and Rimuru realized he might have accidentally sabotaged Adelman by allowing holy attribute gear to drop so early. Still, even if floor 60 flopped, Rimuru was already looking ahead. The Golem Guardians on floor 70 were up next, and this time, he had high hopes. And that wraps up today's update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video from AniMonolith.